Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Decision Hour. I'm your host, Adam Bird. Thank you for being here. And as always, I'm excited. I'm coming back to you this week. Got a great guest for you today. He's the principal at Global Capital Markets. It's a mid-market investment bank that is focused on merger and acquisitions, capital raising in both debt and equity, along with some secondaries and a slew of other things that we're going to get into a little bit later. But more importantly, he's the founder and of a TV show called Silicon Valley Success. I'm always afraid I'm going to say that word wrong. And the host of the podcast, the Silicon Valley Podcast. There it is again. He's passionate about building bridges and connecting people in the Silicon Valley. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shawn Flynn. Shawn, how are you doing, buddy?
Adam, thank you for that intro. I'm amazed you got all that right.
I was more worried about how I pronounce certain words, if you know what I'm saying. So, but welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming on. Let's dive right into it, man. Tell our listeners about yourself.
Okay. I'm not sure how far back you want me to go, but my history, mechanical engineer undergrad, wanted to travel the world. After college, went abroad for about 8 years. Lived in Costa Rica 2 of those years, China almost 5, Europe for a bit as well. When I was in China, I started 3 companies. 2 failed, 1 did okay. Exited, partner bought me out, came back to the US, moved back to Silicon Valley because this is where I grew up. And since then, I entered the startup ecosystem where I worked at a startup because no corporation would hire someone with my experience. They all gave me the same spiel of, hey, you're going to get bored in a year and leave us. Yeah. So we're not going to hire you. And I was like, but I need money. So
I got bills, man. I got bills.
I don't see the problem here, people. I'll see what's going on.
We'll work for food.
Yeah. And but no startups. I realized pretty quickly will hire anyone with a pulse that's just like nods their head and I was like, yeah, I don't know what you're doing, but yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Yeah, you know. And so I had a buddy that started a company. He hired me. That company, like most other startups, after 8 months, ran out of capital. Yeah. We were finding product market fit that whole time. And what we thought would be a 30-day sales cycle turned out to be like a year sales cycle. So we had this amazing pipeline, this multi-million-dollar pipeline, and there was no way to fulfill it because we ran out of funds. Oh. But in that process, it was a good thing. I got to meet a bunch of angel investors in that time. And one of them was the founder of Bay Angels. And I was at a pitch event and I was just talking to him, and he's a world traveler. And I was telling him, about my times overseas, and we got along pretty well. And I was just like, hey, I got some extra time. If you need someone to, deal screen for you guys, I'd love to help out. And he's like, okay. So I went to his office for an event. There's a couple of angel investors there. They're vetting some companies. And I was just sitting in on this meeting, listening to these guys that, one guy in that meeting wrote $100,000 check. And I was just like, I want to know what these guys know. Like, I
want to be friends with that guy.
Exactly. Who totally blew me off too. When I was like, when I asked him a question, I kid you not, at the end of that day, I was asking him a question. He just looks at his phone, turns his back to me, and just starts texting. I was like, oh, I will have my revenge on this guy one day. Oh. Of course, that's never happened. He's still like this guy way up here and I'm down here. But I learned a ton from him. I've actually stayed in contact with him over the years now, and he's actually taught me a ton. So, cold shoulder at first, sweet, warm guy after you get to know him. But I started volunteering. Then after a while, I was the investment director. So I'd screen 100 companies a month, screen that down to about 20, get on calls with them, then bring in about 12 to 15 for the members. And then screen that down to 6 to present. And normally 1 would get a check, each month. From that, I got recruited. I was doing deal flow rooms between the angel group and new incubators that were setting up because they had, 20 years of connection in the Valley. These new facilities had new money, but didn't have connections. And I got recruited. I was the head of incubation for a global accelerator incubator that focused on artificial intelligence and blockchain. And when I was there, I see the look on your face. So cut me off anytime.
No, that's like I'm thinking like, wow. Okay, so I want to elaborate on that one because artificial intelligence is like it's quickly becoming It's not like the next thing. It's like, listen, the shit's already here. Let's
Oh, it's
like
been around
it's like
30
iRobot. It's
years.
like hey, I'm waiting for like the iRobot to come up and excuse me, Mr. Bird. Like who the like, you know what I mean? Like, so what type of artificial intelligence was it? Was it like web-based artificial intelligence, or was it like you're building like robots for like the military or something?
Good question. So actually, this incubator chain was backed by a Chinese land development company.
Of course it
So
was.
we stayed away from military, of
Okay.
course. I would even try to set up agreements with like I remember one time I was in a meeting with Lawrence Livermore Lab to try to set up a partnership, and they're like, okay, let's do some background, and the money comes from where? Okay, this meeting was good, right?
There's a huge conflict of interest with this one. Pass. Wow.
We got 15 minutes left in this meeting. Right. How do we just, there's a lot of silence. It's kind of awkward.
But I'm assuming stuff like that probably happens more often than not.
Well, remember when I was there, I started in 2017 before the trade war.
Yeah.
Right. So when I was there was a ton of investment coming in from mainland China into Silicon Valley. Whether it was governments opening up incubators, whether it was investors wanting to make investments into startups here. So there's a ton of money flowing in. And then the trade war happened. And in a short span, like FIRMA and all these new laws, the money just dried up because they couldn't accept money from overseas investors. They couldn't get money over here. There's a lot. I mean, we were bringing delegations every other month, like 10 companies to these cities in China to set up an office. Not to relocate, but to set up their China office, and all that literally just stopped. And then a year and a half later, COVID starts. So of course, all travel stops. So it was like a 2-year kind of like, what is going on here? Because it was this kind of a path going up of collaboration because a lot of the engineers here in Silicon Valley, I mean, they're Chinese citizens that came to university, Stanford, Berkeley, opened up a lot of startups. So there's a lot of synergy, a lot of things happening where you have maybe founders here raising capital, but a engineer team over there, or building whatever it is. There's a lot of cross border, but that really stopped there for quite some time. It's picking up a little bit now, but yeah. So I was at this incubator accelerator, and we can keep going in questions. While I was there, I was making a lot of intros to venture capitalists, to angel groups, to investment banks, and when you make intros to the investment banks, you start them with that process of helping the company from seed to A, but then the VCs and bankers and all that go from, A to public offerings, right?
Right.
And I'm just looking at that roadmap going, oh man, that is so cool what they're doing. Like, I hate this handoff. I want to be with them the whole time. So my buddy's investment bank, they sponsored me. I got my Series 63 SIE 779. I'm now getting my 24 as well. I switched to another investment bank, Global Capital Markets, a few months ago, and that's kind of my path. So I've worked with companies from idea to, public companies setting up facilities.
I want to talk about it. So for the listeners that don't know, what exactly does that mean when you're saying investment bank? A bank that a company goes that's looking to raise some capital or get some capital or whatever the case is, some working capital. They go to the bank, apply for a loan or whatnot, and that bank invests in them if they see that it's a good fit. Am I on point with that, or am I off?
A little off. There's so many things that get fit under that umbrella of investment banker.
Educate us.
Right. So you got, you hear people on Wall Street, trading all that. That's one investment banker. You have these other people managing. Oh, I mean, that's an advisor, but managing money. But most people think those are investment bankers. What I do and what we do is, and it gets broken down into so many categories. But say you're a company.
Okay.
You want to go out and you want to raise $50 million. But you don't want to do it on your own. You're a startup, you're a founder, you're busy. You think, okay, this is going to take me 6 to 9 months to do on my own, a couple hundred hours to get everything together. I'm going to go to this investment bank. I'm going to have them run the process for me. They're going to go out there. They're going to contact, private equity groups, family offices, sovereign wealth funds. They're going to put together this.
Because they have the contacts to do that.
Exactly, because that's what they've done.
Right.
I mean, it's not you for the first time going, okay, I know 5 investors, and hopefully one of them writes a
Yeah.
check. It's
Hey,
no, these
Bill.
guys.
Hey, Bill, how's it going? I got something for you. Like, no. Okay. Okay. Next. I got it. Yeah. Thanks.
I'm your dentist. Why are you?
And
It's that, okay, this bank, they have a Rolodex of, several thousand investors that they know specifically focus on what your company's doing. So, maybe you are that agriculture technology company, that ag tech company. They talk, they have 4,000 investors. They know that invest checks between 1 and 5 million because you want that $10 million check and you want like 3 or 4 investors in it. Or maybe you want just one person to write a $10 million check. Well, they know the investors that write $10 million checks because that's in their investment thesis.
right.
And they're sitting there talking to them, negotiating the deals, helping with the conversations, moving them along. They're running the whole process from, creating the blind profile, which would be like a 1-pager, to the executive summary, to the confidential information memorandum, which is like a 60-page document,
Right.
to the data room, to the list of people reaching. They're doing everything for you, and then they get a percentage of the success. And normally on that path, they get a retainer as well, just to keep the lights on. So that and those, mergers, acquisitions, raising capital, restructuring debt. There's so many things that they can do.
Got it. So now let me ask you, this is for an investment question for like these, there's venture capitalists, there's angel donors, and then the straight investors or whatnot. When these investment banks are going after the capital out of their Rolodex, as you put it, right? Are they offering, is it always like an equity share in the company, or is it they have X amount of years to pay off X amount of dollars with a percentage on top of that, off of the profits, or how does that, or does it matter how it can be structured really any way, just based on the agreement that the parties come up with?
Exactly. It could be structured several different ways. It could be debt. It could be equity. It could be, convertible debt that goes from debt to equity. There could be a lot of different ways. And that's another reason why bankers are valuable, because they'll look at the market and they'll go, okay, right now debt is this, percentage you'd have to pay in interest. Equity, there's more money flowing in here that they need to deploy. Let's have a conversation where we can structure it so it's the best for your company for not only today, but next year, 5 years from now. Because one thing that a lot of startups have problems with, and maybe for your audience, we should talk more about angel investors and VCs.
Well, I was just going to ask that next. Yeah.
Because you need to, it's 9 days. So an investment banker won't work with that early stage company. They're too small. I mean, they're raising $500,000. The fees for the investment bank will be $500,000. It doesn't make sense. They need to be raising, 10 million, 20 million
right.
for it to make sense for them to work with an investment bank. And people might think, oh my God, that sounds so expensive. But if you actually look at the whole process, how many people are involved and the time frame of it, you actually break it down. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
That's several hundred hours, sometimes thousands of hours put it together over and it's not like, okay, you got 1 or 2 people working on this. No, you got a team of probably a dozen people making phone calls and making deals and going back and forth.
And it's success based, right? So like 85% of the money, 90% of the money comes after it's closed. So you may work with a company 6-9 months and there's no close. And you're like, well, we tried. And they're like, well, we closed. And then but what I'm saying is there's a risk on both sides that maybe all the work doesn't happen.
Right.
I mean, just look at last year with COVID, how many people were running a process in this direction, and then that hit, and they're like, we can't do anything now. Now your company's not as valuable because all your contracts aren't being fulfilled.
Right.
The investors are scared because you don't have these and now we just have to wait for things to cool down. So, a lot can happen in that.
So, but you say investors, but I'm thinking angel investors, and then you have venture capitalists. You have your VCs, right? So explain angel investors to us, because I've heard angel investors are like usually the people with like what we call stupid money. Like they have like, I need a tax write-off, so I'm just going to throw some money this direction and hope that it works. If not, then I can write that off. Kind of. And then you have venture capitalists that are like, I'm looking at investing in this because I see the potential that it has. Stick with it for a few years, sell it, do a buy it, whatever, or what. Is there a difference, how big is the difference between the two?
Huge difference.
Okay.
Which do you want to start with?
Let's start with like
the angel.
Let's start with the angels. It's like
Okay.
how does it, like when somebody hears angel investor, like what is it? What does that mean exactly?
So an angel investor is just an individual that's normally a high net worth individual. He's got $1 million in liquid. He's able to write checks for something he's interested in.
Right.
And normally they write checks in a field or profession that they have a background in. So a doctor might be interested in med tech, or I don't know, a guy that worked at building routers or servers might be interested in this type of hardware, but they normally specialize in something that they know about, but they'll write a check sometimes even before the company has a valuation. They might say, okay, I'm going to write you a check for $50,000 today. We'll figure out what your company is worth 3 years from now when you do your first price round or that. And it's more that there's not really too much for them to do due diligence on. I mean, basically the companies are normally an early stage where the founders, you have an idea of what they're working on, and they might have a minimal viable product, that very beginning sample, but they might not have sales, or maybe they have like a beta test client or something like that, like super early, right?
Big risk, just more of a risk.
Big risk, huge reward.
Okay.
Right. I mean, they're coming in, maybe the company is valued at $3 million and they write a check and get, 5% of the company. And then the VC comes in when the company's worth, 20 million, and the check sizes are completely different. And, as an individual, you can write a check for whoever you want.
Right.
You don't have an exit date either. Like I can write you a check and, I'm like, hey, Adam, well, pay me back on your exit, whether you get acquired or go public, whatever. Here's the money. I'm going to make some intros for you from my network. And, but I got all this other stuff I got to do. So, call me up when you have questions and I'll keep helping you out.
Okay.
Now you go to the VC. Now the VC has an investment thesis where they raise money from outside, institutions, sovereign wealth, pension funds, whatever. And they say, hey, I'm going to invest in companies. My check size is going to be, for example, 1 to 3 million. I'm going to deploy this capital over 2 years. I'm going to invest in companies that are focused on med tech, that the CEO or office is based in Silicon Valley in this geographic, like it's all laid out for them.
Right.
And companies come to them like, hey, I want money. And they go, okay, let me check, make sure that you're part that I can because of my investment thesis. All right, if I write a check for $1 million, I need to get at least this much percentage in your company. And, it goes from there, but they have an exit, like their fund ends at like 7 years.
Right.
Where before that they have to harvest, they have to sell what they have. The company has to have an exit. The whole time they're pushing. And, they're looking at the market because, they have to raise their next fund to get paid. And it's not like an individual where it's, I'm a person, I wrote you a check. I like this money back sometime, but there's not that hard stop.
Yeah,
where
this would be
VC,
really cool if you could pay me back like sooner than later. Okay.
Can I get more money than I gave you?
And add another 7 to 10% on that when you do it, right?
Exactly. We're good.
Well, so let me, I'm learning a lot here, folks. So I hope you guys are taking notes. Shawn, one of the other questions we got a lot of listeners that start their own business and whatnot. And I recently told you offline prior to starting the show that I literally in the last 4 days, I've talked to people that are looking at, they're all startups and they're looking for investors. What is a company that's just starting, literally just starting out the gates, and they're wanting to approach investors to invest? What do they need? Where does their mindset need to be, and what do they need to be preparing for when meeting these investors?
Okay, so first they need to have that plan, like pre going out to investors, during going out to investors, and then after conversations start. And what I mean by that is a lot of startups miss the opportunity to build momentum. So if you're building out your idea right now, start posting on social media, start reaching out to your network. Hey, this is what I'm doing. Because who knows, someone in your network might go, hey, I like that idea. I believe in Adam. I've known him for years now. I'm gonna write him a small check. Like I see what he's doing. Maybe I know some intros. I can make intros to him. Maybe those first clients or whatever. But use the opportunity right at the beginning while you're still building it to reach out to everyone let them know what you're doing. And then sometimes, that results in people saying, hey, I can help you with this. I can help you with that. And then that might actually either delay the amount of money you need. Maybe you don't even need money at that point because you're getting these customers that are actually paying for the product to be built and grown, or that extra marketing on that behalf. But, mention what you're doing into people. And then also, sorry, I'm just rambling.
No, you're good. This is perfect.
Because a lot of people don't realize how extensive their networks actually are. And what I mean by that is, I had a meeting with two founders of a company. One was an MIT graduate, one was a Stanford graduate. And they're like, hey, Shawn, we need intros to angels. I was like, you got to be kidding me, right? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, MIT, Stanford, you guys probably have the biggest angel alumni networks ever. Just go to your alumni group and go, hey, where's the angel group that's associated with my university? Could you please make a warm intro? Hey, how many, these are the companies that are the target for our product once it's built. Is there a graduate from our university that went to any of these schools? Okay, let me reach out and say, hey, you're a Stanford grad. I'm a Stanford grad.
Genius.
Genius. I mean, between the angel group, between the alumni that you can reach out to, and then secondary connections and that, you're probably pretty well set. And then just from that, once you're in one angel group or have that network, most of these people connect, like for example, one angel group that I was the investment director of, we had association with 13 other angel groups. So if we liked a deal, we would send it to them. And if they liked one, they would send it to us.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing. Once you have that warm intro, that angel investor, and he likes you, he's going to start introducing you to his network, and it just snowballs after that. As long as you're, coachable, they like you,
right,
and you take their feedback. But I mean, if you just write out this game plan of, okay, this week I'm going to reach out to my network in this area. And also what people don't know is if someone has a VP title, they could probably write you a check.
Right.
Right. Like they're at that level, a doctor, a VP, I mean, the list goes on of these are people that could write you a check for your company. They're at that, financial level, and you probably know them. Or if not,
but here's the thing, you have to ask. You got to go out. The biggest thing here is you have to ask. And it's so funny that you're talking about, hey, you need to reach out and tell people what you're doing. And I'll start talking about it. And this is, I'm using myself as an example because I got several other companies, and it's like, I'm just keeping my head to the ground, and I'm grinding. I'm grinding. And if I need the money, then I'll try to put something together. But the other thing I want to back up to, because you said something important, is like you have that plan, putting everything in place. How much of your business plan do you have to have written out when you start off?
So my idea with that plan right there was more your marketing, your traction, your exposure plan.
Okay.
But no, you're right. For your business, I'm not sure who here has actually gone through like the lean canvas model where you just have that map and you're like, okay, we got the customer, we got, the revenue stream, we have that, and just map it out. It's super simple. You could watch a video online. I mean, if you have that and then start pitching that idea, you're going to get a lot of feedback and your idea is going to change. Yeah. Like that's the craziest part is you'll see founders for 6 months just pitching kind of a modified idea over and over again. So I mean, at the very beginning, we'd mentioned my podcast, the Silicon Valley podcast. Yep. I interviewed Elsna, who's the founder of Roby. She went to 200 VC meetings, 200. No. And then got a $4.2 million check.
That's a great example. And I like the segue because that segues into our next topic. I want to talk a little bit now about your TV show and the podcast. How did you get into your background and what you do? And then how did you wake up one morning and was just like, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to do a TV show. Like, this is what I'm going to do. Like, how did it walk us through that process? Because I always find it fascinating how people are like, well, there was sitting back and having a few, and I thought we'd do a podcast,
It was about similar to that, I guess.
I love it. Love it.
So actually, I tried a couple times to do just like overseas blogs when I was in China, and everything got blocked, of course.
Yeah, right.
So so I came back to, Silicon Valley 2013 after being overseas for so long.
Right.
And I realized I was like, I have no social media connections. Like, how do I get, interviews for jobs? Because people always say reach out to your network. And then I had to go back and try to find buddies from college that I hadn't talked to in like 8 years because, Facebook was blocked for 5 of those years. And this other, and I realized the power of social media then and connections. So I did try to do a podcast. That didn't work. And then, a few years later, I had this idea again going, let me revisit what I tried to do like 5 years ago that failed. Let me redo it now. Because I was having the same conversations over and over again. So I would get startups from, Europe, setting up an office in Silicon Valley, China, wherever. And they would ask the same questions like, hey, I need intros to lawyers. Hey, how do I modify my pitch deck for the local market here? How do I, get intros to angels? All these things. How do I do a valuation for my company? And I would, make intros to, talk to this guy. Talk to this person. Talk to this person. They'll help you. And after a while, I just went, I just want to record the conversations I have with these service providers, these experts, and then just refer people to them. Instead of, Shawn, how do I set up a sales channel for my startup? Talk, go watch this episode 13 right here.
Talk to that guy.
Talk to that guy and make sure he gives me a referral fee.
It's 20%, by the way. No,
we only take cash here.
Right.
Bitcoin works as well, but no, so I started doing some interviews with some people that I'd been working with, and it caught on. We ended up doing about 46 episodes total. In that time, I had contacts with this one podcast platform that they wanted to do a podcast on Silicon Valley, and I was like, hey, I got this TV show that's now in 28 cities here in the U.S. I want to do something global. Let me modify it. Let me put it on your platform. They liked the idea. It started off really good. The first person I interviewed was Melody Perkins, co-founder of Canva. Oh, geez. So it's a good start, right? So,
like, you're setting the bar effing high on that one. It's like, who's your first show? Just the co-founder of Canva. That's no big deal. No big deal.
Yeah. Oh, my favorite is anytime I meet anyone from Australia, I'm like, Australia, I know someone from Australia. Hey, there's this selfie of me taking the screen on Zoom. Do you know that person in it? I think she's like a Billy. I don't know. It's the only person in Australia I really know.
We get Christmas cards from to each other and stuff like that, but no big deal. No big deal.
Yeah. It might be sent by her marketer and her name. I'm not gonna double check it. Okay, in my mind, it's. What was actually a funny story there. So Jim McKelvey, co-founder of Square, I got to interview him, and I was like emailing him back and forth, and in the interview he's like, yeah, Shawn, I don't do any of my social media. I always have people taking care of it. Like emails, Twitter, everything. I'm like, I've been talking to you. Wait,
yeah.
So I've talked to your assistant this whole time.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah. Self-esteem rapidly dropping.
I'm gonna edit this out of this interview and make it seem like we're best buddies.
Right.
But no, the podcast has turned out to be an amazing way to get in front of people, get meetings with people. Maybe it, in the past would have been, kind of outside of my league to get that hour or 2 hours of their time.
Right.
And just sit down one-on-one. I mean, I'm not sure if your listeners have gotten a chance to listen to the podcast, but I mean, some of the people I've interviewed, Patrick Lee, founder of Rotten Tomatoes, Scott Kearns, founder of Juniper Networks. I mean, the list goes on and on of these Silicon Valley elites.
That's a very big group. And folks, real quick, I'm going to plug this real quick. It's the Silicon Valley podcast. You can hear it anywhere you listen to, like, there's a slew of places where you can listen to podcasts now. Go on Apple, Google, Spotify, all the places. Unless is there a website? Do you have a website where people can go to?
I do have a website, but currently it's being rebranded. So if they want to go to the SiliconValleyPodcast.com, you can. In the next 2 months, We're getting a new website, Silicon Valley Live. I'm getting a studio built out in Los Gatos. There's going to be a lot of changes that are going to happen in the next 2 months. We're taking it up a notch. It's going to be pretty incredible. And I mean, the list of people we already have lined up to be guests is kind of the who in different secters.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to be.
God.
Adam, you're going to have to stop by when you're in Silicon Valley next time. You're going to have to come to the studio.
Well, I may have to make a special trip out there just to see it. Listen, brother, we're Shawn, coming up on time, but there's so many other things that we could go over, so I'm gonna have to bring you back on for a second episode. But there's a question that I ask all my guests. You're on the show called The Decision Hour. We make decisions every day. Clearly, you've shared a lot of those today. Name a time in your life where your feet were on the line and you had to make that decision. What was that decision, and what was the atmosphere like for you at that time?
Oh man, it kind of seems like that happens all the time. Yep. You know, my wife's right over there, so there's one decision.
And he's smiling right now, folks. Like I wish we could see him right now. He's smiling. He's like, he literally pointed like, my wife's right over there. So I'll use another example here.
No, that was best decision.
The best decision. And that's a great answer right there. Great answer. I feel the same way as mine standing right over there too. And now giving me the eyebrow.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
That happens every day. That's how you know there's love. And
oh my God.
The subtle look of disappointment.
Oh my God, man. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Some of the biggest decisions for me were, go to China, don't go to China. Go to Costa Rica, don't go to Costa Rica. Major this, don't major in this. I'd say every year there's one major decision that I'm like, okay, this pivots my life this way or pivots my life that way. And, you always look back and you go, okay, what happens if I never did this or never did that? You look at your buddies and you're like, okay, he's there. Would I have preferred to have been there where I am at now? Or I don't know. I'd say the biggest thing, I can't even tell you how many decisions. I mean, just this investment banking thing for me,
right?
That's a huge decision because it's eat what you kill, right? Like you're out there, you're looking for your leads, you're looking to close the deals. It's not a steady paycheck, but you could make amazing cash or just have that heartache where, you're going a year or two with nothing, but it's exciting. You learn a ton and,
but you love what you do. Yes.
I love the challenge. I love the challenge.
It was definitely the right decision.
Yeah. Oh, the biggest decision for me was, take that offer from Adam and be on the podcast or not. That's, I mean, this moment is probably the biggest life-changing pivot of my life. Like, where do I go from here?
And it's getting thick here now, folks. And that's all the time that we have. No, checks in the mail, Shawn. Thank you. I'll edit that part out. No, but listen, man. For people that are listening, for the listeners right now, how do they get in touch with you? Maybe whether it's for listening to the podcast or they want to get involved at, or maybe they have some questions or whatnot for investment. How can people reach out to you? Where can they find you?
Yeah. If you have any questions about investment banking or just want to reach out to me, my email is sf@globalcapitalmarkets.com. So that's plural, sf@globalcapitalmarkets.com. All my social media is Shawn, SHAWN, FLYNN, So Shawn Flynn, SV. LinkedIn, I'm most active there. And I'm starting to get involved in Clubhouse. I have a little group there, Silicon Valley Startups, which I'm going to ask Adam to host an event there whenever he has time. And since he can't edit this in post, I'm sure he's going to say yes. So hopefully, you'll see us all there. Check it out. And no, seriously though, reach out to me if you have any questions on angel investing, VC, any of that stuff. I'd love to help.
Shawn, appreciate your time today, brother.
Thank you.
Folks, that's all the time that we have today. We're going to have Shawn's information up on our social media platforms as well as the website. And before we let you go, don't forget, check out our parent network, Heroes Media Group. Go check out all the shows, articles, and new shenanigans that we're doing over there. Simply go to www.heroesmediagroup.com. Until next time, you've been listening to The Decision Hour.